Now, after we fill up the 2s block, where will we put the next electrons?
2s2. And the 2s.
After we filled up the s block, where do we put the electrons after we fill the s block?
Oh, p.
P. And how many electrons can fit in the p block?
6.
6. So does that match the choices?
No.
Which choice does that match?
2p5.
Right, but there's nothing wrong with that. That just means they only had enough electrons to put 5 of them in the p block.
Right.
So it's perfectly okay to not fill something up. So it's perfectly okay to only put 5 electrons in the p block. So is there room for 5 electrons in the p block? Yes. And is there room for 6 electrons?
Yes.
Yes. So choice E is just fine. It just means they ran out of electrons before they filled up the p block. There's nothing that says you have to totally fill up every block.
Now is A wrong because you can't have 3s3?
There you go. That's right. After we put the electrons in the 2p block, what's the next block we're going to fill up?
3s.
That's right, but how much room is there?
2.
Yeah. So it would be perfectly fine if one of these choices was 3s1. It's perfectly possible if there's not enough electrons to fill up the s block, but you're not allowed to put 3 electrons. And again, you don't really need any math to do this. You can just read it straight off the periodic table. There's 2 columns in the 3s block. Since there's 2 columns, we know there's room for only 2 electrons. So it's completely impossible to put that 3rd electron in there. Right, that's a very good standard type of problem.
So after you do 3s, you do 3p.
That's true.
And there's 6 in 3p.
That's true.
And then you do 4s.
Who do you do first, 4s or 3d?
Oh, 3d.
Take your time. Who do you do first?
Says the d subshell is at even higher energy than the p subshell.
That's right. But before we focus on that in the homework, what does the periodic table tell us? What we really want to do is get in the habit of reading the answers off the periodic table.
4s.
That's right. If we trust our periodic table, it tells us that the 4s block is going to get filled before the 3d block. And the homework explains why that is. The homework explains that the reason for that is that a d subshell is at a higher energy than the s subshell for n plus 1. But you don't actually have to wade through all those numbers. The neat thing is we can just read the answers off the periodic table. Just by looking at the periodic table, we can see that 4s gets filled before 3d.
So that means that 1 and 2 are wrong.
What's wrong with number 1? It looks like it's putting electrons in the d block before it's filled up the 4s block.
And same with number 2.
And what's wrong with number 2? Again, they've put electrons in the d block before they filled up the s block. And also, how many electrons can you put in the d block?
Only 10.
Yes, there's 2 things that's wrong with part 2. They've got too many electrons in the 3d block, and they wouldn't be filling that up anyway. How about choice 3? Is that okay? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. How many electrons can you fit in the 4s block?
2.
So once you put those 2 electrons in the 4s block, it's perfectly permissible to then start filling in the 3d. So what was the right answer?
3.
Good. Now the most important lesson from this again is that even though the textbook and the homework is oftentimes trying to get us to solve these mathematically and with rules, most of these can be just read off the periodic table. So whenever possible, you want to see if you can just read the answer out of the periodic table. Who gets filled first, 4d or 5s?
5s.
Okay, this is why we said last time when you take the exam, maybe the first thing you should do when you take the exam is just write down a little periodic table on your own and label all the blocks. And then you can read the answers to these types of questions off of your table. These videos are offered on a pay-what-you-like basis. You can pay for the use of the videos at my website. There is a link to my website in the info box. The address is www.freelance-teacher.com/videos.htm, or you can just use the link in the info box. By the way, I also offer tutoring via Skype, and you can find more information about that Skype tutoring service at my website. Thanks.